Chapter 357. The Black Armor Warriors were notoriously difficult to deal with. Otherwise, the true martial sect would not have used them as a facade to guard the true martial hall. If the real martial arts sect was attacked one day, then the real martial arts sect wouldn't be far from being annihilated. Even 10,000 Black Armor Warriors would be useless. However, this could also indirectly prove the usefulness of this thing. Teacherson frowned and said, "How can we deal with this thing with just the two of us? Do you have an idea?" Chu Xiu gestured with the demonic dance in his hand and said, "No matter how strong the Black Armor Warrior is, it is just an inanimate object. What controls it is nothing more than the various arrays in its body." In the past, the Sky-Reaching Martial Sect had set up a Black Armor Warrior here to serve as a warning. If someone invaded and the Black Armor Warrior made a move, there would definitely be people coming. Therefore, they had set up a defensive area for the Black Armor Warrior. They would not let the Black Armor Warrior chase after one person and lead to the tiger being lured away from the mountain. What we need to do is very simple. Attack with full force and use inner strength to shake the array. Once the enemy catches up, they will immediately hide outside the attack range of the Black Armor Warrior and wear it down. Oh right, Eldertson, you are from the Ba Mountain Sword sect. You should have cultivated the Purple Lightning Azure Light Sword and the Divine Firmament Lightning Sword of the Ba Mountain Sword sect, right? Using them to deal with the Black Armor Warrior is very effective. Teacherson said in a low voice, "I know the Purple Lightning Azure Light Sword. However, the Divine Firmament Lightning Sword needs to attract heaven and earth and attract lightning. It cannot be used in the Sky-Reaching Pagoda." Chu Xiu shrugged and said, "One is enough." With that, Chu Xiu slashed out with the demonic dance in his hand. The boundless demonic aura actually condensed into a 10-meter-long blade aura and slashed towards the Black Armor Warrior. Seeing Chu Xiu's attack, Teacherson's eyebrows also twitched slightly. Chu Xiu's foundation was shockingly strong. A casual strike from him was a 10-meter-long blade aura. The accumulation of his inner strength was already similar to a unity of heaven and man realm warrior. In any case, when Teacherson was at the 5 Chi's origin realm, his stellar energy definitely did not exceed 10 Zhang. The saber fell, forcing the Black Armored Warrior to retreat several steps. Unexpectedly, it only left a white saber mark on the Black Armored Warrior's body. One could imagine how tough the Black Armored Warrior's body was. Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance was an existence that was infinitely close to a divine weapon, and its material was the foundation of a divine weapon. Even with the addition of the Heavenly Devil Order, it still could not break through the Black Armored Warrior's defense. If it was any other 6th Revolution precious weapon, it would probably not even leave a mark on it. At this time, the Black Armored Warrior was also alarmed by Chu Xiu. His figure was like a black shadow as he swung the heavy sword in his hand at Chu Xiu. Actually, the Black Armored Warrior's attack method was very simple. He didn't know any sword techniques, just simple horizontal slashes. However, because its defensive power was astonishing and the power of that slash was also very heavy, even a martial art practitioner at the unity of heaven and man realm would not be able to block it so easily. Therefore, its power was abnormally strong. At this time, Teacherson, who was at the side, also made his move. If they did not deal with the Black Armored Warrior, no one would be able to obtain the heart. Teacherson was not so short-sighted as to play such tricks while they were working together. The long sword in Teacherson's hand bloomed with layers of greenish-purple electric light. His figure was also extremely fast, like a bolt of lightning streaking across the sky, directly blasting the Black Armored Warrior's body. Immediately, the Black Armored Warrior's body trembled, and it turned around to attack Teacherson, and Chu Xiu took advantage of this opportunity to attack from behind. After the two sides exchanged a few moves, Chu Xiu and Teacherson felt that they had consumed too much energy, so they immediately retreated. As expected, the Black Armored Warrior stopped attacking. After they recovered a portion of their vital energy, they continued to attack. After an hour, the array light on the Black Armored Warrior's body was completely extinguished, and it directly fell to the ground. Chu Xiu and Teacherson were slightly out of breath. Even with their cultivation, the consumption of internal energy at this time was not an ordinary amount. Teacherson looked at the Black Armored Warrior on the ground, and shook his head with slight pity. Actually, this black armored warrior itself is a treasure. It would be a pity to destroy it like this. Although the black armored warrior looked somewhat useless, and if there was only one of it, its use would be limited. It could only be used to guard the door, but for a large sect, it was a good item to hold up the facade. If Teachertson could bring it back to the Ba Mountain Sword sect, he would definitely have made a great contribution. But now, this thing was completely destroyed. Although there did not seem to be many scars on the outside, the arrays and mechanisms inside had been destroyed. Today, when the Thousand Machines sect was destroyed, no one could restore it. Chu Xiu said indifferently. Other than a martial arts grandmaster who can completely subdue it, no one can subdue this thing. Let's just look at what's in front of us. As he spoke, Chu Xiu and Teachertson both looked at the heart of the beast sealed in ice. Their eyes revealed a burning look. Although they didn't know what the beast's heart was, no matter how weak the beast was, its entire body was still a treasure. For a moment, the two fell into a strange silence. At this time, Chu Xiu and Teachertson raised the sword and saber in their hands at the same time, and slashed at each other. Surging demonic energy and purple lightning intertwined, and violent explosions of energy bloomed. The Heaven Demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand slashed down continuously. The power of the Avicii demonic blade was displayed to the extreme. One blade had 3 transformations, and it slashed open the door to hell. Faint cries of ghosts and gods could be heard. Teachertson's sword presence became extremely steady and heavy in that instant. As the sword aura slashed down, it evolved into the magnificent earth, mountains and rivers. Splendid mountain and river sword. The sword aura and the saber light collided. As the demonic energy surged, it could be said that they were evenly matched. No one could do anything to the other. Although Chu Xiu's explosive power was strong, Teachertson was, after all, a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm. His realm was higher than Chu Xiu's by several levels. In addition, although the martial arts of the Ba Mountain Sword sect were not very famous, the Ba Mountain Sword sect's 8-character sword tactics were both offensive and defensive. They could be arranged at will, and had few weaknesses. As the sword moves changed back and forth, Chu Xiu could not do anything to Teachertson. Of course, Teachertson also lacked killing moves. Facing a freak like Chu Xiu who could kill an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm with the 5 Qis unification, he was also very helpless. After the two exchanged dozens of lightning-fast moves, they could not help but put down the sword and saber in their hands at the same time, and looked at each other warily. Both Chu Xiu and Teachertson were not easy to deal with. One was a hungry wolf, the other a greedy old fox. With benefits in front of them, they could put down their hatred and work together. But now that the obstacle had been removed, both of them wanted to monopolize the beast's heart. Chu Xiu put away the sky demon dance in his hand and smiled. Eldertson is indeed an expert of the Ba Mountain Sword sect. Your 8-character sword tactics have been cultivated to perfection. The corners of Teachertson's mouth also pulled into a forced smile. Official Chu's strength as the 6th on the Longhu roll is not just for show. Since neither of them could do anything to the other, they could only split the heart according to the agreement they had previously made. Actually, whether it was Chu Xiu or Teachertson, they did not necessarily feel that they could not win against each other. If they really fought to the death, in Chu Xiu's view, it was not as if he had never killed a warrior at the unity of heaven and man realm. Although Teachertson's strength was above the Wei family patriarch in the others, he was not as strong as Feng Wuling. And in Teachertson's view, he also had trump cards that he had not used. If they really fought to the death, would they not be able to do anything to a junior warrior like Chu Xiu? But in this situation, there was no need for them to fight to the death. The Tower of Babel was so big, and this was just a corner of it. Who knew what good things were inside? It was not worth it to fight to the death now. After splitting up half of the heart, Chu Xiu threw it into the secret space box, turned around and left without looking back. Teachertson did the same. Both of them had ulterior motives. When they worked together, it could be said that they schemed at every turn. It was definitely not a happy cooperation. After leaving the main hall, Chu Xiu took out the array disc. There were many dots of light flashing in one direction. Clearly, there were many people near that side, and one of the scarlet dots of light was Lu Fengxian. Previously, Chu Xiu did not ask what cultivation technique Lu Fengxian cultivated. Now his inner strength was scarlet in color. He did not know what kind of fortuitous encounter he had in the land of West Chu, but he was not weak. With a move of his body, Chu Xiu headed in the direction where Lu Fengxian and the others were. In this Tower of Babel, there were only two people that Chu Xiu was afraid of. One was Xiahou Wujiang's seventh uncle, and the other was Teacher Xian. Just now, if Lu Fengxian had been there, Chu Xiu would have dared to join forces with Lu Fengxian to kill Teacher Xian. Then he and Lu Fengxian would split the beast's heart equally. At this time Lu Fengxian and the others were not at peace. There were many people with Lu Fengxian. There was Mo Tianlin, several loose cultivators, Xiahou Wujiang, Yan Fian, and two female disciples of the Yunu Palace. Not only were they surrounded by a group of exotic beasts, but they were also trapped by an array that had suddenly been activated. Those exotic beasts weren't a threat to them, and their strengths were extremely weak. However, the formation around them was constantly weakening their inner strength and true qi, causing their true qi consumption to be 10 times, or even more than 10 times that of the past every time they attacked. This also caused them to not dare to go all out to kill those exotic beasts. If they didn't manage to charge out of the formation's range halfway, their inner strength would be overly exhausted, and they would be swallowed whole by these beasts without leaving even dregs. Now that they were surrounded, Mo Tianlin smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Lu, we're really too unlucky this time. We didn't get any benefits, but we encountered such a thing. It's a pity that Brother Chu isn't here. If he was, you could join forces with him, and we would definitely be able to kill our way out." Lu Fengxian waved halberd to kill those exotic beasts while saying in a low voice, "There are all these messy things everywhere. I reckon that Brother Chu is also entangled by these things. We'll first think of a way to kill our way out, and then go save Brother Chu." When Mo Tianlin heard this, he could not help but be speechless. This brother was really ambitious. He had not even resolved his own crisis, and he was already thinking of saving others. Chapter 358. The situation of Lu Fengxian and the others was indeed not good. Of course, the most important thing was that they were not of the same mind. Apart from those itinerant martial artists, Lu Fengxian, Xiahou Wujiang, and Yan Fian all had the strength to be in the top 10 of the Longhu list. Mo Tianlin was also an expert on the Longhu list. If these people really joined forces, they would not lose to a unity of heaven and man realm martial artist. It would be very easy to kill their way out. But among these people Lu Fengxian and Mo Tianlin were on Chu Xiu's side, and they had enmity with the Yunu Palace and the Xiahou clan. And the Yunu Palace that Yan Fian came from also had enmity with the Xiahou clan because of the previous incident with Feng Wuling. Previously, the people of the Yunu Palace suffered at the hands of the Xiahou clan. Although the matter was considered to be settled due to the powerful strength of the Xiahou clan, the people of the Yunu Palace still had some enmity with Xiahou Wujiang. When Yan Fian and the others went up the mountain, they did not say a word to Xiahou Wujiang. And previously, the people of the Yunu Palace also had a conflict with Chu Xiu, sowing another enmity. Looking at Xiahou Wujiang's side, it was the same. He also had enmity with both sides, so in this way, the conflict between the three sides was not just a little deep. It was almost impossible for them to unite without any ill feelings. At this time, Xiahou Wujiang's eyes showed a touch of ruthlessness. Among these people, Xiahou Wujiang was the one who consumed the most energy. Although the spirit control technique of the Xiahou clan was powerful, it also consumed a lot of energy. These exotic beasts did not have much mental strength, and they could easily be blown up by Xiahou Wujiang's spirit control technique. But the problem was that his spirit control technique could not be used like this. In the face of these endless exotic beasts, Xiahou Wujiang's mental strength was consumed like water. If this continued, he was afraid that there would not be much left, so he had to think of a way to kill his way out in advance. Xiahou Wujiang turned around and shouted at the few itinerant martial artists, "You guys go up and hold them off. Once we kill our way out, everyone will be rewarded." The rogue martial artists immediately shook their heads and hurriedly retreated. For these people, although Xiahou Wujiang's reward was important, And being able to make friends with a young elite like Xiahou Wujiang was also not bad. Their lives were more important at the moment. Who would dare to go forward and throw away their lives? At that time, he would not be able to spend the money even if he had his life. Xiahou Wujiang's eyes flashed with killing intent when he saw that none of them had come up. Xiahou Wujiang formed a seal with his hand, and a mysterious power burst out. The imperial spirit art was directly displayed by him to the extreme. However, Xiahou Wujiang's imperial spirit technique wasn't aimed at those exotic beasts, but at those independent martial artists. The strongest of these rogue martial artists was only at the physical invulnerability realm, and they couldn't resist Xiahou Wujiang's imperial spirit technique at all. Their minds were directly controlled by him, and they foolishly burst out their own gang qi to rush forward. However, the person at the front could only resist for a few breaths before his gang qi was exhausted, and then he was torn into a bloody mist by a group of exotic beasts. Xiahou Wujiang didn't care about this at this time. He directly took out a formation plate from the secret space box. There were 4 small swords inserted on the formation plate, which turned out to be a miniature sword formation. This was a gift from Xiahou Wujiang's father on his 18th birthday. It was the famous and powerful sword formation of Hidden Sword Villa, a miniature simplified version of the 4 absolute sword formation. It could only be used once, and the formation plate would shatter after it was used. It was a life-saving item given to him by his father, and now Xiahou Wujiang had no choice but to take it out. As the sword formation was activated, the 4 small swords protected Xiahou Wujiang's body, and the few martial artists controlled by Xiahou Wujiang's imperial spirit technique opened a path in front, blocking 90% of the exotic beasts. Any fish that slipped through the net would be strangled by the sword formation. After using his own territory, Xiahou Wujiang actually smoothly disappeared into the formation. Seeing this scene, the 2 female disciples of the Yunnu Palace cursed angrily. Shameless. Xiahou Wujiang's actions were indeed very shameless. Although the people of the Yunnu Palace were overbearing and unreasonable, they still considered themselves to be from a righteous sect. Now that Xiahou Wujiang was doing this, it was undoubtedly very shameless in their eyes. Yan Fian wasn't as angry as the 2 female disciples. She just frowned and secretly thought that it wasn't good. Xiahou Wujiang left, but as soon as he escaped, the exotic beasts attacked even more fiercely, causing their qi to be greatly consumed. The Yunnu Palace's Yunnu sword mantra was naturally formed. Although it was powerful because every move involved a huge amount of heaven and earth power, the qi needed to be used was also extremely shocking. In a one-on-one fight, the Yunnu Palace's martial artist's explosive power was extremely shocking. However, in this situation, even if Yan Fian's strength was outstanding, there was nothing she could do. What happened next was indeed as Yan Fian had expected. After those exotic beasts lost the resistance of Xiahou Wujiang and the others, they became even more berserk, causing Yan Fian and the others to be somewhat unable to hold on anymore. At this time, Lu Fengxian glanced at Yan Fian and the others. He suddenly bit his finger, and fresh blood seeped into the silver halberd in his hand, causing the entire halberd to turn scarlet red. At the same time, Lu Fengxian formed a seal with one hand, and strands of blood-red runes appeared on his face. However, when matched with his handsome appearance, it gave off an evil sense of beauty. In that instant, the aura around Lu Fengxian's body rose to the extreme. As the halberd swept across, a scarlet-red aura instantly swept out, like a storm. Everywhere it passed, all the exotic beasts were torn into a cloud of blood mist by this halberd, and a large area was instantly emptied out. Mo Tianlin was stunned. This was the first time he had seen Lu Fengxian use his full strength. He didn't expect the power to be so terrifying. Lu Fengxian turned around and shouted at Yan Fian, "Follow behind me, we'll kill our way out." Yan Fian was stunned. She didn't seem to expect that Lu Fengxian, who was Chu Xiu's good friend, would actually be willing to save her along the way. However, at this time, Lu Fengxian seemed to have already turned around and killed a bloody path forward. Yan Fian thought about it, but still called out to her 2 junior sisters, and followed behind Lu Fengxian, killing their way forward together. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, without the suppression of the formation, everyone immediately felt their bodies lighten. and those exotic beasts also seemed to sense something, and retreated like the tide. At this time, Lu Fengxian's face was slightly pale, and the strange runes on his face had also disappeared. He stood on the spot, panting uncontrollably. Yan Fian looked at Lu Fengxian, and hesitated for a moment, but still walked over and cupped his hands in salute, saying, "Thank you, young Master Lu, for saving us. I will remember this favor." Previously, Yan Fian didn't pay much attention to Lu Fengxian. After all, Lu Fengxian's reputation in the pugilistic world wasn't that great. She didn't expect that she would be mistaken. This Lu Fengxian's strength was actually so shocking. He was definitely comparable to Chu Xiao and Xiahou Wujiang, those young elites who were in the top 10 of the Dragon and Tiger leaderboard. Lu Fengxian waved his hand and said, "I just did it in passing. If Miss Yan wants to thank me, then put aside the enmity between the Yunnu Palace and Brother Chu for now. We have already explained the matter regarding Feng Wuling very clearly. Brother Chu did it unintentionally. And Brother Chu is now a torturer of the Guanzhong torture room. If the Yunnu Palace insists on becoming enemies with Brother Chu, other than gaining an enemy out of thin air, there won't be any other benefits. Miss Yan, please think carefully before you act." Yan Fian looked at Lu Fengxian in surprise. She also didn't expect Lu Fengxian to actually say such a thing. After a moment of silence, Yan Fian nodded and said, "Since young Master Lu has said so, then the matter between the Yunnu Palace and Chu Xiao will be over. As long as Chu Xiao doesn't provoke the Yunnu Palace, the Yunnu Palace will also not provoke Chu Xiao." Yan Fian agreed very quickly. In fact, from the beginning, Yan Fian didn't want to become enemies with Chu Xiao. When Wan Er went to question Chu Xiao on Mount Deyang, and asked for an explanation and so on, it was just a matter of face. The people from the Yunnu Palace went to the Xiahou clan to ask for an explanation, but in the end, they were deceived by the people from the Xiahou clan. Not only did they not get anything, but they also lost face. After seeing Chu Xiao, the other people from the Yunnu Palace might not be able to provoke the Yunnu Palace because they were used to bossing people around in the past. Perhaps they couldn't provoke the Xiahou clan, but could the Guanzhong torture room's Chu Xiao not be able to provoke them? Therefore, the previous scene happened. Yan Fian thought that Chu Xiao would definitely give face to the Yunnu Palace, so she didn't stop Wan Er. Just like what Mo Tianlin said, if Chu Xiao had been replaced with Lu Fengxian or him, they would have patiently explained to the people from the Yunnu Palace and given them enough face. Then they would definitely not have fought. But who would have thought that with a beauty in front of them, Chu Xiao's attitude was so unyielding, and the Yunnu Palace couldn't back down either. Thus, the enmity between the two sides was formed. But now that Lu Fengxian had saved the people from the Yunnu Palace, Yan Fian had to return this favor no matter what. It just so happened that she had a way out of this embarrassing situation. After all, after witnessing Chu Xiao's strength, Yan Fian also somewhat regretted not stopping Wan Er. Becoming enemies with such an opponent was not a good thing. After Yan Fian pulled her two junior sisters who were still somewhat unwilling away and left, Mo Tianlin asked doubtfully, "Brother Lu, you saved them just now to help Brother Chu resolve the enmity between him and the Yunnu Palace?" Lu Fengxian smiled, nodded, and said, "That's right. Brother Chu's enmity with the Yunnu Palace is nothing more than a fight for face. It's not like the enmity with Xiahou Wujiang, where it's an irreconcilable enmity. Brother Chu has already offended enough people in the Jianghu. Although he doesn't mind having one more, it's undoubtedly better to have fewer. It just so happens that I have such an opportunity to help him resolve this not too serious enmity. This will also allow Brother Chu to relax a little in the Jianghu." After hearing Lu Fengxian's words, Mo Tianlin sighed. He finally understood why the cold and indifferent Xia Xiaolu held Lu Fengxian in such high esteem that he was even willing to give up his position as the successor of the World Alliance to Lu Fengxian. And the overbearing Chu Xiao was also a close friend of Lu Fengxian. Chu Xiao talked about benefits to others, but only talked about friendship with Lu Fengxian. Becoming friends with a person like Lu Fengxian, he would never let you suffer a loss. And no one could refuse to become friends with a person who would always think for you. Perhaps this was Lu Fengxian's charisma, an existence even more dazzling than his martial arts. Chapter 359. When Chu Xiu found Lu Fengxian and Mo Tianlin, the two of them had almost recovered their strength. However, because Lu Fengxian had used a secret technique to rush out of the formation, her vitality was somewhat injured, so she only recovered some of her qi temporarily. Her body still needed to be recuperated after going out to recover to its peak. Seeing Chu Xiu coming, Mo Tianlin said in surprise, "Brother Chu, didn't you encounter those strange beasts?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "I encountered them, but they were all dealt with, and I also got a little harvest." As Chu Xiu said this, he took out the half of the vicious beast's heart and showed it to them. He also told them about what he had encountered after entering Skysplit Tower. In any case, they were all on the same side. Besides the matter of the array disc, Chu Xiu didn't hide anything else. After listening, Mo Tianlin was speechless. The gap between people was really big. After entering here, they triggered the formation and were chased by the strange beasts, making them very embarrassed. In the end, Chu Xiu actually had a lot of harvest. Mo Tianlin also told Chu Xiu about what he encountered after entering here, especially the matter of Lu Fengxian helping Chu Xiu settle the grudge with the Yunu Palace. After listening, Chu Xiu said to Lu Fengxian in a deep voice, "Brother Lu, thank you." He and Lu Fengxian had fought side by side. There was no need for those hypocritical promises and gratitude. 2 words were enough to express everything. Chu Xiu was indeed right. Becoming friends with a person like Lu Fengxian, he would never let you suffer. Although Chu Xiu didn't put the Yunu Palace in his eyes, just like what Lu Fengxian said, Chu Xiu didn't mind having one more enemy, but having one less was naturally better. Mo Tianlin chuckled at the side and said, "It's said that the women of the Yunu Palace are somewhat unreasonable. The other disciples are indeed like that. However, that Yanfian is worthy of being the only person that the Yunu Palace can bring out. She still knows what's good for her." Once Brother Lu said it, she immediately agreed. Chu Xiu smiled meaningfully and said, "Brother Mo, don't underestimate that woman. That Yanfian is definitely not someone easy to deal with. It's not that she's easy to talk to, but she knows the gains and losses of Heng Liang. If I hadn't shown enough strength, and Brother Lu had also shown enough strength, do you think she would have relented so easily? Face is not given by others, but earned by oneself." Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, "It's complicated dealing with people like you." After chatting for a while, Chu Xiu asked, "Oh right, where's Brother Xia? You didn't see him?" Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, "We didn't see him after we came in, but don't worry. That guy's strength is stronger than mine. And he also has the life-saving item that Alliance leader Chen gave him. Nothing will happen easily." Chu Xiu nodded and pointed to the back of the formation. "Have you seen what's behind this?" Mo Tianlin and Lu Fengxian were stunned and said, "Behind? What's behind this?" Chu Xiu said, "Don't forget, this is the Tongtian Tower, the place where the disciples of the ancient Tongtian martial sect lived and cultivated. If it wasn't an important place, would the people of the Tongtian martial sect set up a formation here for no reason?" Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Mo Tianlin and Lu Fengxian came to their senses. Only some extremely important places would be guarded by things like array formations and traps. They had just been teleported here, and had almost forgotten about this point. The formation in front of them was invisible and intangible. Chu Xiu and the other two did not know how big it was, so they could only start to search around the formation. After bypassing the spirit array, a small white jade door appeared in front of the 3 of them. Chu Xiu blasted out a palm force and carefully blasted the stone door open, but there was no danger inside. When Chu Xiu and the others entered, they found that it seemed to be a person's residence. There were some messy things everywhere. Chu Xiu and the others checked carefully. Apart from some miscellaneous things, most of them were some ancient books. However, they were not about martial arts but about divination, formation Tao, and even some things that Chu Xiu and the others did not understand at all. Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, "This should be the residence of a master of the Tongtian martial sect who was proficient in formation Tao or divination. I'm afraid there are no martial arts secret manuals here." None of the people present had any use for formation Tao or divination. The Heaven Alliance and the Guanzhong torture room did not have anyone who was proficient in divination and formation Dao. Therefore, these things were given to Mo Tianlin for him to bring back to the Mo family. As a large family in the past, the Mo family had a few formation masters who could use these things. When the three of them entered the deepest part of the residence, the scene in front of them made everyone slightly stunned. There was a disc-shaped altar in the deepest part of the place, and a stooped figure was sitting in the middle. Taking a closer look, the stooped figure had already turned into a skeleton. In front of him was a white jade tablet. His finger was still on it, and he used blood to write a line of words. However, the words had already turned pitch black at this time. The three of them looked at each other. The divination master of the Tongtian martial sect actually died here. Did he use his life to divine? There were not many people in Jianghu who were proficient in divination, but definitely not few. However, there were not many who could be called masters. The reason was very simple. Those who were proficient in divination rarely lived long. Some of their lifespans were even shorter than that of ordinary people. The first reason was that divination consumed too much spirit and blood essence. It was not easy to make up for this. The second reason was a little mysterious. Legend had it that divination revealed the secrets of heaven. Naturally, heaven would be jealous. Therefore, all those who practiced divination would have their lifespans shortened or die a violent death. Therefore, some of the people who could be called divination masters in Jianghu were at the level of martial arts masters. Moreover, they would not easily perform divination. Once they performed divination, they would pay the price of their own lifespans. They went around the back of the skeleton and looked at the words on the white jade tablet. The words were crooked, giving people a very strange feeling. It was as if they were barely written with the last bit of strength. There were only 8 words. Heavens will not be defeated, Devil Lord will not die. Everyone present looked at each other. What did this mean? The divination written by the people of the Tongtian martial sect to the Devil Sect's sect master, Dugu Weiwei? Now, when the Devil Lord was mentioned, everyone would immediately think of the Devil Sect's sect master, Dugu Weiwei. Moreover, Dugu Weiwei had not been defeated even once. Even if he disappeared after the battle with Ning Xuanji, it did not prove that Dugu Weiwei had been defeated. But soon, everyone came to their senses. Something didn't seem right. The Clear Sky martial sect was a sect from the ancient era. After the great calamity of the ancient era, the Clear Sky martial sect had been completely annihilated. Dugu Weiwei was the cult leader of the Devil Sect 10,000 years later. How could the divination grandmaster of the Clear Sky martial sect predict the future of a person 10,000 years later? Mo Tianlin hesitated and said, if the Tao of divination is cultivated to the peak, can it really predict what will happen 10,000 years later? Lu Fengxian, who was at the side, said, the Tao of divination is to predict the future. Some people have already deduced some clues about the great calamity of the ancient times. Otherwise, the ancient sects would not have created secret boxes to store cultivation techniques and other things. However, no one knows if the time of this deduction can reach 10,000 years. The problem is, why would this divination master use his life to predict a person 10,000 years later? At this time, the Tongtian martial sect has already been destroyed. This is completely meaningless. Could this divination grandmaster be predicting the devil cult of the ancient times? The 3 branches of Tao, Buddhism, and devil have been passed down since ancient times. What if he deduces the devil lord of the ancient times? Mo Tianlin shook his head and said, although many ancient books have been found, there are even more missing. There are really no records of the devil sect among them. However, in the current history, the devil sect has been in a state of disunity since the great calamity of the ancient times. There are all kinds of devil Tao sects, but no one has become the real ruler. It was not until Dugu Weiwei took control of the Kunlun devil cult more than 1,000 years ago that all the devils in the world bowed their heads and became famous in the world. It was also then that the title of Devil Lord came into being. Legend has it that the peak of the Kunlun devil cult is still burning with the rootless sacred fire. The 3 devil weapons of the Kunlun devil cult were forged from the rootless sacred fire. After the destruction of the Kunlun devil cult, Some of the remnants of the devil cult also shouted the slogan that the devil lord would not die as long as the sacred fire was not extinguished. It is somewhat similar to the divination master's deduction of the undefeatable destiny and the devil lord. TSK, the undefeatable destiny. This destiny is top-notch and domineering. I reckon that since the ancient times, apart from Dugu Weiwei, no one else in this world can shoulder this destiny. Mo Tianlin exclaimed in admiration. He didn't think much of it. They were all juniors in the Jianghu. The Kunlun devil cult had long been destroyed, so the devil lord's death had nothing to do with them. However, they felt that it was a pity that there was nothing good in this place. However, at this time, Mo Tianlin felt that something was wrong. It was not that there was something wrong with the place, but that there was something wrong with Chu Xiu. From the moment he saw those words, Chu Xiu stared at them without saying a word, as if he was in a daze. Mo Tianlin nudged Chu Xiu and said in surprise, "Brother Chu, what did you find?" After being nudged by Mo Tianlin, Chu Xiu seemed to wake up. He shook his head slightly and said, "No, I just wanted to see if there was anything unusual about this handwriting." Chu Xiu lied. In fact, he was suddenly in a daze because the moment he looked at those words, his consciousness seemed to be pulled into those words, and he could not extricate himself. Chu Xiu seemed to have seen something, but at the same time, he did not see anything. Anyway, it was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It was not until Mo Tianlin nudged him that Chu Xiu was freed from that state. Chapter 360. Chu Xiu was somewhat puzzled as to why he would fall into those words. The other two were normal, but why was he the only one who was like this? Could it be related to this body of his? After all, in the original plot, this body of his had become the cult master, so he was worthy of the title. However, even in the original storyline, there was still a huge gap between him, the demon lord, and Dugu Weiwei, who had nearly unified the pugilistic world with his demonic might. It could even be described as the difference between heaven and earth. Furthermore, it was almost impossible for a life providence like the invincible destiny to exist. Since ancient times, apart from Dugu Weiwei, Chu Xiu couldn't think of anyone else who could bear such a life providence. Everyone didn't discover anything and prepared to leave. At that moment, Chu Xiu held the white jade slate and said, "I'll keep this. It might be of some use in the future." After all, it was left behind by a divination master. The others didn't have any objections. This was an ordinary white jade slate. It was made of the same material as the Tower of Babel. If Chu Xiu wanted to collect it, they naturally wouldn't snatch it from Chu Xiu. After going back and forth, Mo Tianlin looked at the fog and said worriedly, "The fog here is so thick. I can't see the direction at all. Getting lost is secondary. What if I step on a trap again?" Chu Xiu smiled and pointed in a seemingly random direction. "Follow me. It's definitely right." Mo Tianlin was puzzled. "Why?" Chu Xiu pointed at his head and said, "Intuition. It's said that women have intuition. Brother Chu, do you have it too?" Mo Tianlin lampooned, but he still followed the direction Chu Xiu pointed. Anyway, they were confused now, so they could just randomly choose a direction to walk in. Chu Xiu didn't know the details of the original plot, but he could use the dumbest method to figure it out. For a circular building like the Tower of Babel, the most important place was definitely in the center. Others couldn't find the direction of the center, but Chu Xiu had hidden the 5-element array around it, so he could easily find it. Now he had already met up with Lu Fengxian. With the two of them working together, even if they encountered 7th Uncle Chu Xiu, they would still dare to fight. Everyone walked forward for about 15 minutes. The fog became thinner the further they went. Finally, there was a round tower standing in it. The round tower looked like a smaller Tower of Babel, but above the door, there were the words Arsenal. Mo Tianlin looked at Chu Xiu and muttered, "Brother Chu, your intuition is really accurate, even more accurate than a woman's." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Are you praising me or scolding me?" As soon as Chu Xiu finished speaking, the door was blasted open, and a figure rushed out. It was Tangya. At this moment, behind Tangya, 3 invisible arrows of astral energy shot towards him in rapid succession. The two daggers in Tanya's hands burst forth with violent stellar energy to block the first arrow. But when he wanted to block the second arrow, his daggers shattered with a loud bang, and Tanya spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as he was about to use his secret art to block the third arrow, a pitch-black saber light slashed across, and with a loud bang, it directly chopped down the gang energy arrow. Chu Xiu walked over and said with a frown, "What's going on? Is there someone inside?" Seeing that the person who came was Chu Xiu, Tanya breathed a sigh of relief and said, "The people of the Xiahou clan and Tichertsen are inside, as well as many others from the Yunu Palace. The people of the Xiahou clan want to monopolize the things in this arsenal. They actually suppressed Tichertsen by themselves and killed a lot of people. Yen Buhui is inside, but I don't think he can block more than a few arrows from the Xiahou clan's warrior at the unity of heaven and man realm." Tanya was not Lu Fengxian. Outside, Lu Fengxian could take the seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows head-on, but if it was a warrior at the three-flower realm like Tanya, the seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows would probably be able to kill them in one shot. However, the seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows only had 13 arrows. Previously, he had already wasted one arrow outside. Naturally, he did not need to waste arrows against small fries like Tanya. Even so, it was very difficult for Tanya to block the arrows. If it were not for Chu Xiu's timely intervention, Tanya would probably be seriously injured even if he did not die. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "The good things are all inside. We can't let the people of the Xiahou clan monopolize them. Everyone go in and attack together." As he spoke, Chu Xiu and the others also rushed into the arsenal. The area of the arsenal in the sky-reaching tower was not small. It was about 1,000 feet in radius. The surrounding tower was bare, but there was a huge green tongue tree in the center. Secret boxes of different sizes were placed on each branch. Obviously, even an idiot would know that the better the things were, the more likely they would be on top. However, at this time, other than the branches of the green tongue tree that were closest to the bottom, the secret boxes above were still there. It was not that they did not want to take them, but that the bottom was already in a mess. They were all here for the treasures, and it was impossible to distinguish between friend and foe. Among them, seventh uncle was fighting with Teacher Xian. He still had 9 of his 13 soul-stealing arrows left, and the longsword in Tichertsen's hand had cracks. Obviously, it had been heavily injured by seventh uncle. At this time, seventh uncle also did not continue using the 13 soul-stealing arrows. Instead, he only used the arrows condensed from his stellar energy to fight with Teacher Xian. But even so, Tichertsen was still being suppressed. Seventh uncle was clearly preparing to exhaust his opponent to death. Below, Xiahou Wujiang was fighting with Yan Fian. Actually, in terms of strength, Yan Fian should be stronger than Xiahou Wujiang. Yan Fian had stepped into the Five Qis origin realm much earlier than Xiahou Wujiang. Moreover, the You Maiden Palace's You Maiden Sword mantra was extremely powerful in a one-on-one fight. Xiahou Wujiang definitely did not dare to face it head-on. But now, Xiahou Wujiang was using the Imperial Spirit technique to deal with Yan Fian. He did not directly use the Imperial Spirit technique on Yan Fian. Instead, he forcibly used his mental strength to control 2 female disciples of the You Maiden Palace as meat shields. While this kind of fighting method was somewhat shameless, it also made Yan Fian cautious and not dare to use his full strength. Therefore, he was instead suppressed by Xiahou Wujiang. The other Ba Mountain Sword sect disciples, some unaffiliated martial artists, and Chu Xiu's subordinates were fighting chaotically with each other, wanting to obtain the secret treasure box on the green tongue tree. But the result was that no one obtained anything. As long as someone approached the green tongue tree, seventh uncle would shoot down an arrow. Just like Tanya just now, he was almost seriously injured. And now, seeing Chu Xiu and the others enter, the others present also secretly thought, not good. The scene before them was already chaotic enough. If Chu Xiu and the others also intervened, it would be even more chaotic. Chu Xiu gave Lu Fengxian a look, and the two immediately headed for the green tongue tree in the center. But at this time, seeing Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian's movements, Tichertsen and seventh uncle simultaneously stopped. A sword energy and an invisible arrow shot towards Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian, blocking in front of them. Although seventh uncle and Teachertson were fighting so fiercely just now, they could not let Chu Xiu reap the benefits. Looking at the two people blocking in front of him, Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "One monk carries water to eat, 2 monks carry water to eat, 3 monks have no water to eat." While this analogy is somewhat inappropriate, if the 3 of us continue to persist like this, none of us will obtain any benefits. No one knows how long the sky-reaching tower will be open for, and we also do not know how many people will come from outside in this period of time. Why don't the 3 of us split the treasures? Teachertson was somewhat tempted. He said in a deep voice, "How do we split it? The treasures are all stored in the secret boxes. Do we have to open the boxes one by one to check? Furthermore, the most valuable items in the sky-reaching tower are definitely at the top. Who should we give them to? These items should all be listed in a list." This trip to the sky-reaching tower was a pleasant surprise for Teacher Xian. As for the enmity between him and Chu Xiu, after witnessing Chu Xiu's strength, he was prepared to let it go. If Chu Xiu was not strong enough and did not have the backing of the Guanzhong torture room, Teachertson did not mind killing him to avenge his disciple. But now, not to mention the fact that he could not kill Chu Xiu, forcefully killing him would bring about endless troubles in the future. It was not worth it. Just as Chu Xiu had said, Teachertson had many disciples. It was not worth it to sacrifice himself for one disciple. So according to what Chu Xiu said, the 3 of them would split the treasures equally. As long as he did not lose out, Teachertson was willing. At this time, when the group of wandering martial artists heard Chu Xiu's words, they were extremely anxious. If they were to engage in a chaotic battle right now, these wandering martial artists would have a chance to take advantage of the chaos to obtain some benefits. But if they waited until the 3 sides reached an agreement to split the treasures equally, they would not even be able to get the leftovers. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang broke away from the battle with the New Palace martial artists and said coldly, "Eldertson, do you not want to avenge your disciple?" The Ba Mountain Sword Sect is one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, and is an illustrious existence in West Chu. Yu Teachertson can be considered a character in the West Chu martial arts world. If that disciple of yours knew that not only did his master not take revenge for him, he even cooperated with his enemy, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing in the underworld. Teachertson's face twitched. Although what Xiahou Wujiang had said was the truth, and what he had said was to provoke Teachertson into attacking Chu Xiu, saying it in front of so many people still made Teachertson lose face. Especially if today's matter was spread by the wandering martial artists present. Teachertson was sure that the next day, there would be rumors in the martial world that he, Teachertson, was afraid of Chu Xiu. His disciple had been killed by Chu Xiu, but in the end, he did not even dare to fart in front of Chu Xiu, and even wanted to cooperate with him. The people in the martial world who spread rumors were always 30% true and 70% false. Only the heavens knew how his matter would be spread. Chapter 361. Xiahou Wujiang's provocation caused Teachertson, who had been tempted, to hesitate again. Chu Xiu looked coldly at Xiahou Wujiang, a cold light and murderous intent in his eyes. Compared to the time at the God Weapon Conference, the present Xiahou Wujiang had grown a lot. At least, he was much more brilliant than when he had incited that mob to kill him. At that time, Xiahou Wujiang was just a clown with a good background and talent, a hedonistic son of a rich family. He would not amount to anything. Just from the fact that he had offended Mo Tianlin, a descendant of one of the 9 great clans for a woman, it could be seen that his actions were arrogant and childish. But now, Xiahou Wujiang was enough to become Chu Xiu's enemy, and he had to take him seriously. Chu Xiu looked at Teachertson in front of him and said coolly, "Eldertson, there is only one chance to enter the Tower of Babel. Do you want to return empty-handed? According to what I know, although you are an elder of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect, the qualifications of an elder of the Ba Mountain Sword Sect are very lax. As long as you have reached the unity of heaven and are over 50 years of age, you can be granted the qualifications of an elder. So this treatment is different from the elders of other sections. Obtaining the opportunity of the Tower of Babel this time will at least be comparable to the resources that the sect has given you for many years." Chu Xiu's words moved Teacher Xian. Although his title as an elder of the Ba Mountain Sword sect was quite grand, in reality, it was not that valuable. The elders of other sects were the kind of senior martial artists of virtue and prestige, the mainstay of the sect. But the Ba Mountain Sword sect did not have so many requirements. As long as one's strength and age were sufficient, they could be made an elder, and the treatment was not very high. So Teacher Tsin placed great importance on the opportunity of the Tower of Babel this time. Did he want fame or profit? Teacher Tsin was very conflicted. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang suddenly said loudly, "Elder Tsin, the Xiahou family does not want the things in the Tower of Babel this time. They all belong to you. As long as you can join hands with my seventh uncle to kill Chu Xiu, my Xiahou family will immediately let go of the Skysplit Tower contest." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. No one thought that Xiahou Wujiang's killing intent towards Chu Xiu was so great that he actually gave up the treasures in the sky-reaching tower for it. In fact, although Xiahou Wujiang wanted the treasures in the sky-reaching tower, he didn't value them as much as Teacher Tsin did. He was the most outstanding disciple of the Xiahou clan's younger generation, and his father was the Xiahou clan patriarch. Most of the Xiahou clan's resources were inclined toward him. Although the Xiahou clan wouldn't give all of its resources to Xiahou Wujiang alone, Xiahou Wujiang alone could occupy more than half of the clan's younger generation. Moreover, the uniqueness of the Xiahou clan's spirit control technique also prevented 90% of the Xiahou clan's disciples from being distracted to cultivate other techniques. So even if Xiahou Wujiang obtained the techniques in the sky-reaching tower, he wouldn't necessarily cultivate them. Instead, he would hand them over to the clan in exchange for other rewards. Using these things that he could give up at any time to exchange for Chu Xiu's life, in Xiahou Wujiang's opinion, this transaction was very worth it. Hearing Xiahou Wujiang's words, the balance in Teacher Tsin's heart immediately began to tilt. With a long sword in hand, he stood together with his seventh uncle. Killing Chu Xiu and taking revenge was secondary. The most important thing was that the Xiahou clan didn't want the treasures in the sky-reaching tower, and Chu Xiu had been killed by them together. The Yunu Palace didn't have an expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, and those unaffiliated martial artists were nothing to worry about. In this way, wouldn't all the treasures in the sky-reaching tower belong to him? Was there even a need to choose such a simple question? A cold glint flashed in Chu Xiu's eyes. He looked at Teacher Tsin and said indifferently, "Elder Tsin, the enmity between us has already been put down, but now you're picking it up again. In a while, you'll realize that this was a very wrong decision." Teacher Tsin said indifferently, "Chu Xiu, you killed my disciple. How can I let go of such a huge enmity so easily? The grudges of the martial world should be settled in the martial world. If you don't die today, the enmity between us will be considered settled." The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth curled into a sinister smile. "If I don't die today, the one who will die will be you." For some reason, when Teacher Tsin heard the killing intent in Chu Xiu's tone, he felt a chill in his heart. However, he then sneered. Arrogant. He could be considered a veteran of the martial world. How could he be frightened by a junior like Chu Xiu today? What a joke. Seventh uncle, who was at the side, took out an arrow and knocked it on his giant bow. He said coldly, "Enough, don't talk nonsense with them. Quickly finish them off." As soon as he finished speaking, seventh uncle's arrow had already left the bow. Its speed was extremely fast, like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of Chu Xiu. The speed of the arrow was so fast that even if Chu Xiu erupted with the power of the internal binding seal, he still wouldn't be able to dodge it. Most importantly, it was useless for him to dodge it. The moment seventh uncle's soul-stealing arrow left the bow, Chu Xiu felt as if his soul had been locked onto. No matter where he fled to, the arrow would relentlessly pursue Chu Xiu. Therefore, Chu Xiu could only resist it head-on. The demonic saber was unsheathed, and the eerie demonic energy and blood energy combined. A powerful force suddenly erupted. The Avicii demonic saber slashed 3 times in a row. The first slash had already collapsed when it came into contact with the earth energy on the arrow. Although the second slash had successfully torn apart the earth energy, The saber light had already shattered. It was not until the third slash that Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance collided with seventh uncle's arrow. Suddenly, an earth-shattering explosion was heard. The arrow shattered, and Chu Xiu's figure also took 3 steps back. Even his arm was a little numb. Staring at seventh uncle, Chu Xiu frowned. Seventh uncle was definitely the strongest among the unity of heaven and man martial artists he had encountered. He was second only to the Heavenly Sin branch leader and phaseless demon sects Mr. Liu, who were close to the martial Dao grandmaster level. Moreover, seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows were simply astonishing. He had only cultivated these 13 arrows his entire life, and this cultivation method was extremely extreme. However, each arrow represented the condensation of his entire body's strength. There were probably only a few people in the same realm who could completely block all 13 of his arrows. Just thinking about it made Chu Xiu feel that it would be troublesome to fight against such an enemy. At this moment, seventh uncle's surprise was no less than Chu Xiu's. He knew how powerful his 13 soul-stealing arrows were. Previously, when Lu Fengxian was able to block his arrow, it had already surprised seventh uncle. Now Chu Xiu was also able to block his arrow so easily. Where did all these young talents come from? Even seventh uncle himself had to admit that even Xiahou Wujiang was inferior to Chu Xiu and Lu Fengxian. After seventh uncle attacked, Teacher Tsin no longer hesitated. The sword in his hand flashed with green and purple lightning, and he charged straight at Chu Xiu. However, Lu Fengxian, who was standing beside Chu Xiu, took the initiative to attack first. The halberd in his hand erupted with crimson moon divine light, and the halberd smashed down with great force. As he brandished it, he was like a demonic god, incomparably violent and ferocious. It formed a great contrast with his handsome appearance and gentle personality, and he was actually equally matched with Teacher Xian. At the same time, Mo Tianlin and the others were fighting with Xiahou Wujiang and the other Ba Mountain Sword sect disciples. The entire scene could be said to be extremely chaotic. On the side of the Yunnu Palace, Wen'er said eagerly, "Senior sister, right now, everyone is attacking Chu Xiu. Why don't we also interfere?" Yanfian frowned. "No, I already promised that Lu Fengxian. The grievances between the Yunnu Palace and Chu Xiu are settled. If I go back on my word, what will happen to the reputation of the Yunnu Palace? I know that you were angry at Chu Xiu for crushing your sword, but you need to change your temper and personality. The Yunnu Palace is no longer the Yunnu Palace of the past. Before it was fine for you to do this, but now, not everyone in the Jianghu will give the Yunnu Palace face. They can fight their own battles. We will fight for the secret boxes in the armory. 1. Or when we return to the Yunnu Palace, I will have someone make you another one." Hearing Yanfian say this, Wen'er could only purse her lips and nod. Among the young disciples of the Yunnu Palace, Yanfian's prestige was very high, even higher than some of the teachers of the Yunnu Palace. Of course, this was not just because of her strength, but because she truly cared for her junior apprentice sisters. She did not show any favoritism or form cliques. In the eyes of some of the teachers of the Yunnu Palace, Yanfian was almost the successor to the next palace master of the Yunnu Palace. But it would not be easy for the Yunnu Palace to fight for the treasures in the armory. The independent martial artists and some martial artists from small sects were weak, but they had the advantage in numbers. There was also Yin Luohua, who was slightly weaker, but was a true unity of the world martial artist. Even though Yanfian's strength was astounding, and the other martial artists of the Yunnu Palace were not weak, they could not easily take the treasures in the armory. The two sides were in another chaotic battle, and at this time seventh uncle picked up another arrow. Stellar energy circulated, spiraling around the arrow like a storm. Seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows only had 13 arrows. Previously, Lu Fengxian had blocked 1 arrow, and Chu Xiu had blocked 1 arrow. Against Teacher Tsin, seventh uncle had only used 3 arrows to completely suppress Teacher Xian. There were still 8 arrows left. Even if these 8 arrows could not kill Chu Xiu, they would definitely seriously injure Chu Xiu. A seriously injured Chu Xiu was nothing to worry about. Focusing, seventh uncle's eyes suddenly burst with a bright divine light. It was like a small sun, giving people a dazzling feeling. The arrow left the bowstring, and the storm that lingered around the arrow grew larger and larger under the entanglement of the power of heaven and earth. By the time it reached in front of Chu Xiu, it had already turned into a storm tornado that was more than 30 meters wide. Its power was simply terrifying. Chu Xiu did not retreat, but advanced instead. His hand formed a wisdom fist seal, and the stellar energy domain spread out, causing the storm to become extremely slow. It was slowly sliced apart by Chu Xiu's saber force, and finally, the arrow was cut down. However, before Chu Xiu could even catch his breath, another sonic boom sounded. The second arrow had already arrived in front of Chu Xiu. Chapter 362. Seventh Uncle's arrows were unsheathed, and he only had 8 arrows left. As long as these 8 arrows could severely injure Chu Xiu, he wouldn't be able to walk out of the Tongtian Tower. The first arrow had just been blocked by Chu Xiu's wisdom fist seal, but the second arrow had already arrived in front of him. If the first arrow's storm was a violent force, then the second arrow's sharpness was unparalleled. As the arrow approached him, Chu Xiu could already feel the strong pressure coming towards him. The sharp, bone-piercing force seemed to be able to pierce through Chu Xiu. With a loud shout, Chu Xiu directly formed the Great Vajra Wheel seal and blasted it forward. His hands formed seals, and one seal after another landed. In the blink of an eye, he had actually blasted out more than 10 Great Vajra Wheel seals. Every style of the fast and slow 9 words formula consumed a lot of inner energy. As the first seal that Chu Xiu had mastered, the Great Vajra Wheel seal was not weak. However, compared to other seal techniques, its consumption of inner energy was considered low. Therefore, this martial art technique was also used by Chu Xiu with exceptional proficiency. However, now that Chu Xiu had blasted out more than 10 seal techniques in the blink of an eye, it consumed an abnormally large amount of inner energy for Chu Xiu. In the end, the arrow was forcefully shattered by Chu Xiu, but a trace of blood seeped out from the webbing between his thumb and index finger. Even his arms were trembling slightly. Looking at Seventh Uncle, Chu Xiu frowned. This was only the second arrow, and Seventh Uncle still had 6 arrows left. It was unknown whether he could completely block this arrow. If this continued, he would be exhausted to death by Seventh Uncle sooner or later. Therefore, after blocking the arrow, Chu Xiu immediately formed the inner binding seal. His figure instantly turned into an afterimage as he rushed towards Seventh Uncle. Right now, Chu Xiu only had one chance, and that was to engage in close combat with his Seventh Uncle. Seventh Uncle's martial arts were all in his bow and arrow. Even if he did not use the 13 soul-stealing arrows, he would directly use his internal strength aura chi to transform into invisible arrows to attack. As for the other martial arts, Chu Xiu had never seen Seventh Uncle use them. Moreover, it didn't matter even if he knew how to do it. Chu Xiu didn't believe that after his Seventh Uncle had cultivated the 13 soul-stealing arrows to this level, his other martial arts would also be so terrifying. Seventh Uncle's lips curled into a sneer as he watched Chu Xiu's figure rush over. There were very few martial artists in the Jianghu who used bows and arrows as their weapons. It could even be said that they were rare. This was because this kind of weapon was too extreme, so extreme that it was invincible from afar. However, once it was in close combat, it would be instantly killed. Seventh Uncle had been specializing in his 13 soul-stealing arrows since he was in the innate realm. He had been able to practice from the innate realm until now, and had experienced countless fierce battles without dying. Seventh Uncle naturally had his own foundation. Other people would practice other fist and leg martial arts to enhance their close combat strength, but Seventh Uncle was different. He went to the extreme and practiced his own 13 soul-stealing arrows. It was actually very simple to prevent the enemy from getting close. As long as he shot the enemy halfway, he would not give the enemy any chance to get close. At the moment when Chu Xiu's figure rushed over, Seventh Uncle suddenly grabbed 3 arrows and put them on his giant bow. The 3 arrows were surrounded by 3 different forces. One of them was surrounded by thunder, one was surrounded by cold air, and there were icicles condensing around it. The last one was as hot as fire, and even the surrounding chi of heaven and earth was burning. 3 arrows in one bow, Soul-stealing arrows. Everyone could only hear a thunderous explosion. A powerful aura immediately surrounded the entire arsenal, causing everyone to look in the direction where Seventh Uncle and Chu Xiu were fighting. The 3 arrows were green, blue, and red in color. They were like 3 meteors as they smashed towards Chu Xiu. The powerful aura they exuded caused everyone's expression to change. Even Teachertsen was no exception. Previously, when Seventh Uncle and Teachertsen were fighting, although he was suppressing Teachertsen, Seventh Uncle did not have the intention to kill Teacher Cien. After all, it was just an ordinary fight for treasures. The Xiahou clan did not have any enmity with the Ba Mountain Sword sect. It was fine to defeat the other party, but there was no need to kill him. Moreover, danger was everywhere in the sky-reaching tower. Seventh Uncle could not possibly use all his 13 soul-stealing arrows on Teacher Cien. Now that Seventh Uncle had shot out 3 arrows simultaneously, Teachertsen felt that even he was not 100% confident that he could withstand the might of the arrows. And right now, facing Seventh Uncle's 3 arrows, the pressure on Chu Xiu was even greater. These 3 arrows seemed to have sealed off all the space around Chu Xiu to dodge. Although there were only 3 arrows, they gave off a feeling of despair as if they were an inescapable net. In that instant, a bloody mist erupted around Chu Xiu. He burned his essence blood, and his hand formed the Dugu seal. His stellar energy formed a shield, and he was as immovable as a mountain. Boundless power of blood seeped into the stellar energy shield, causing Chu Xiu's body to be shrouded in a boundless bloody color. The 3 arrows with different powers shot towards Chu Xiu's Dugu seal. The power that exploded in that instant caused the entire arsenal to tremble. Chu Xiu's figure was forced back by the 3 arrows. With each step, his footsteps were deeply imprinted on the ground, leaving footprints and cracks more than a foot deep. After taking more than 10 steps back, the Dugu seal in front of Chu Xiu finally shattered. However, the 3 arrows had also exhausted their power and fell to the ground. However, at that moment, Chu Xiu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned deathly pale. Chu Xiu's Dugu seal was mainly a defensive secret technique that could withstand stellar energy. However, it might not be able to withstand the violent fluctuations of stellar energy when they exchanged blows. Under Seventh Uncle's 3 arrows, Chu Xiu's internal organs were injured, and he was directly injured by the shock. The power of this strike was so great that the power of the 3 arrows was condensed into a single point. Even Chu Xiu had never seen this from the Heavenly Sin Branch Lord or Mr. Liu. If it were some weaker unity of the World Realm martial artists, they would probably have been killed by these 3 arrows. Seventh Uncle held another arrow in his hand. He looked at Chu Xiu, who was spitting blood, and said lightly, "It's already not easy for you to block 6 of my 13 soul-stealing arrows. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the next 3 arrows." From Seventh Uncle's point of view, Chu Xiu was already seriously injured, and he was confident that he could kill Chu Xiu within 2 arrows. The last arrow of the 13 soul-stealing arrows was indeed not something that Chu Xiu would be able to see. There was a sharp scarlet killing intent coiled around the arrow. In fact, Seventh Uncle's arrows carried a different amount of power. The 13 soul-stealing arrows was not just a martial art. It included 13 different variations. This arrow burst out, and its killing intent soared to the sky. Even the silver-white arrow was dyed scarlet red. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu did not choose to dodge. Instead, he stared at the arrow and used the heaven's sun gazing at air skill to its limit. His mental strength was greatly depleted, and there was even a sharp pain in his mind. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's eyes, there was not a single flaw in Seventh Uncle's arrow. It was the pinnacle of power, and it could be said to be invulnerable. This level of heaven's sun gazing at air skill was not enough. A glimmer of light shone in Chu Xiu's eyes, and 2 streaks of blood flowed out from the bottom of his eyes. However, Chu Xiu did not even blink. At this moment, in Chu Xiu's eyes, there were dense lines twisting on the arrow that represented power. However, when he used the heaven's sun gazing at air skill to its limit, those lines began to lengthen and twist. At this moment, Chu Xiu seemed to have stepped into a new world. He saw it. Those lengthening lines did not represent the present, but the future. It was the path of Seventh Uncle's arrow. The heaven's sun gazing at air skill's power was restrained, and ordinary people would not be able to see through Chu Xiu's abnormality. In the eyes of the crowd, after seventh uncle shot this arrow, Chu Xiu stood there foolishly, as if he had given up resisting and was ready to die. Lu Fengxian, who was fighting with Tichertsen, widened her eyes. She wanted to save Chu Xiu, but she was firmly entangled by Tichertsen, and could not escape. Xie Xiaolu, and Mo Tianlin, and the others wanted to save Chu Xiu, but faced with seventh uncle's arrow, they did not have the strength to do so. Yin Luohua, the leader of the Thundercloud stronghold, Chen Yuan, and the others who had suffered at the hands of Chu Xiu, were secretly sneering. Weren't you Chu Xiu arrogant? Weren't you overbearing? Weren't you looking down on everyone? What about now? You're still going to die here. However, the next scene caused everyone to widen their eyes in disbelief. Seventh uncle's arrow was less than 10 feet away from Chu Xiu, but Chu Xiu suddenly stepped 3 feet in one direction. It was at this distance of 3 feet that the arrow narrowly brushed past Chu Xiu. Even the astral energy on the arrow barely brushed past Chu Xiu's protective astral energy. There was not the slightest bit of conflict. Seventh uncle's eyes revealed a look of shock. However, this was not the end. The 13 soul-stealing arrows chased after the soul. Without blood, how could it be so easily dodged? After the arrow missed, a glaring red glow of murderous intent erupted from the arrow. It actually turned around and continued to stab towards Chu Xiu's back. Chu Xiu did not even look back. He once again took a step in another direction, and the arrow once again brushed past Chu Xiu's body. After missing for the second time, the arrow turned around again, but the result was the same. It still missed. After being dodged by Chu Xiu 3 times in a row, the stellar energy attached to the arrow was no longer enough to make it turn around again. The arrow was directly nailed into the wall of the armory. The force was still astonishing, and it was directly nailed into the wall, leaving only a tail feather trembling. Everyone present looked at Chu Xiu, then at seventh uncle. They could not figure out what was going on. With a warrior's speed, it was very easy to dodge ordinary arrows because the trajectory of the arrows was fixed. However, seventh uncle's 13 soul-stealing arrows were attached with stellar energy. They chased after the soul and directly locked onto Chu Xiu. Their trajectories were constantly changing, but Chu Xiu was able to dodge them every time. The stellar energy on the arrow was exhausted, so it could no longer lock onto Chu Xiu. It was as if seventh uncle was acting with Chu Xiu. It was simply incredible. Chapter 363. The Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air Technique could be said to be the most difficult technique that Chu Xiu had ever cultivated. He had no clue at all. The last time Chu Xiu faced Feng Wuling, who was at the oneness of heaven and man realm, when he was at the three-flower realm at one's prominence, it could be said that he had only managed to cultivate the Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique to the entry level under great pressure. After that, Chu Xiu had studied the Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique when he was in seclusion or when he had nothing to do. However, he had no clue at all. It wasn't until now, when Chu Xiu was fighting with the seventh uncle and under the great pressure of the 13 soul-stealing arrows, that the Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique had finally broken through to the entry level. He could now initially display the powerful power of the Heaven's Gazing at Air technique. Heaven's Gazing at Air, killing while talking. The Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique had never been used to find the opponent's flaws. Instead, it was used to predict the trajectory of the opponent's attack. A single leaf could tell autumn by understanding all of the opponent's attacks and killing while talking. The entry-level Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique could not reach such a terrifying level. However, Chu Xiu was already able to see the trajectory of the seventh uncle's attack and dodge the arrow before it reached him. No matter how the seventh uncle changed the direction of the arrow, it was useless. Everything was within Chu Xiu's expectations. It could be said that the Heaven's Sun's Gazing at Air technique had the greatest restraining effect on a warrior like the seventh uncle. Of course, the way to break the Heaven's Gazing at Air technique was very simple. The seventh uncle's arrow had reached an extreme speed. Even if Chu Xiu saw the trajectory of the arrow, he would not be able to dodge it. Unfortunately, the seventh uncle was not fast enough, and Chu Xiu was not slow either. The heaven's sun's gazing at air technique was originally only a supplementary technique. The stronger one was, the greater the power that the heaven's sun's gazing at air technique could create. On the other hand, no matter how many things Chu Xiu saw, it was useless because he had no ability to block or dodge these attacks. At this moment, the seventh uncle gritted his teeth as he looked at Chu Xiu, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. It was not that no one could resist his 13 soul-stealing arrows. In fact, the way to resist the 13 soul-stealing arrows was very simple. Just like what Chu Xiu had done before, he could directly use his own strength to resist the arrows and destroy all the gang qi on the arrows. But the problem was that seventh uncle never expected that someone would be able to dodge his arrows in such a situation. Chu Xiu's speed didn't change, but it was as if he had discussed it with Chu Xiu. It just so happened that the power of his arrow had reached a limit, and he couldn't dodge after changing directions. Even the range of his stellar energy had been calculated by Chu Xiu. Wherever the arrow passed, it didn't cause any damage to Chu Xiu. Then what exactly was going on? If it wasn't Chu Xiu's speed that was too fast, could it be that his arrows were too slow? Seeing that Chu Xiu's figure was quickly approaching, seventh uncle had no time to think. He still had 2 arrows in his hand. He stood still, drew his bow, knocked an arrow, and shot. This series of actions was like an afterimage, and the speed was extremely fast. The arrow was almost in front of Chu Xiu the moment it left the bowstring. However, the sharp-eyed people present could already see that Chu Xiu had already moved the moment seventh uncle drew his bow and knocked an arrow. The moment he moved his feet, the arrow had already streaked past him. This kind of prediction was simply terrifying. This arrow was the same as the previous one. It went back and forth twice, but it still couldn't hurt Chu Xiu. The power on the arrow had been exhausted, and it was nailed to the wall. Seeing that Chu Xiu's figure was getting closer and closer, seventh uncle aimed his last arrow at Chu Xiu. However, this arrow didn't leave the bowstring, and cold sweat was already rolling down seventh uncle's head. It wasn't that seventh uncle didn't want to shoot this arrow, but that even if he shot it, he wouldn't be able to hurt Chu Xiu. He simply didn't know how to break out of Chu Xiu's current strange state. Before the arrow left the bowstring, seventh uncle directly yelled at Xiahou Wujiang, "Young master, run!" Seventh uncle wasn't seriously injured, but he knew that once Chu Xiu got close to him, 90% of his martial arts would be crippled. At that time, Xiahou Wujiang would also be in danger. Xiahou Wujiang, who was fighting with Mo Tianlin and the others, saw the situation on seventh uncle's side. He gritted his teeth, and his eyes revealed a look of unwillingness. Xiahou Wujiang was really unwilling. He finally had such a good opportunity, but in the end, he still couldn't kill Chu Xiu. This even made Xiahou Wujiang doubt whether this Chu Xiu was really his nemesis in life. At the God Weapon Conference, he originally wanted to humiliate Mo Tianlin, but the result was that Chu Xiu's interference was unsettled, and his ranking on the Longhu list fell. Later, he wanted to instigate the martial artists of Eastern Qi to kill Chu Xiu, but the result was that Chu Xiu's fame spread all over the world, and his reputation plummeted. He was ridiculed by others. This time, Xiahou Wujiang thought that he had acted decisively enough. He decisively gave up the treasures in the sky-reaching tower in exchange for joining forces with Tichertsen to kill Chu Xiu. In the end, Chu Xiu still turned the tables. Xiahou Wujiang really couldn't understand why this was happening. However, the current situation didn't give Xiahou Wujiang the time to ask why, and he didn't have time to delay. Golden light erupted from his body, and his powerful mental energy directly shook Missouri Tianlin and the others back. Xiahou Wujiang's figure immediately fled. A hint of killing intent appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. He looked at seventh uncle and sneered. Xiahou Wujiang is very decisive in escaping. You told him to escape, and he fled. He doesn't care about your life or death at all. Seventh uncle's last arrow was always aimed at Chu Xiu. He knew that his arrow would most likely miss, so he only shot this arrow in case Chu Xiu abandoned him to chase after Xiahou Wujiang. Hearing this, seventh uncle said indifferently, "My life was given by the family head. In this life, I will go through fire and water for the Xiahou family. As long as young master escapes, I won't disappoint the family head for saving my life. Moreover, Although I don't know what method you used to avoid my 13 deadly arrows, do you really think that I don't know anything else besides the bow and arrow? Young master won't die, and you can't kill me either. Chu Xiu formed the internal binding seal, and his figure appeared in front of seventh uncle in an instant. He slashed out with the demonic saber in his hand, and the demonic saber light instantly enveloped seventh uncle. Since you're so confident, then I'll send you on your way today. Seeing the surging demonic saber light in front of him, seventh uncle's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. He didn't shoot his last arrow. Seventh uncle pressed the giant bow in his hand, and a series of mechanical sounds appeared. In the blink of an eye, the giant bow turned into a short spear, and the arrow was the tip of the spear. His giant bow was called Xuanji, and it was forged according to the ancient Qianji sect's divine weapon, the Xuanji transformation. According to legend, the ancient divine weapon, the Xuanji transformation, could change its form at will, and it could evolve into 18 kinds of weapons. It was very agile. Seventh uncle's Xuanji transformation was a replica, and it only had 3 forms. Normally, it was just an iron box that was convenient to carry around. Its main body was the arrow and the bow, and when it was in close combat, the giant bow could be used as a short stick or a short spear. However, seventh uncle had never used the last form because he had almost never been forced into such a desperate situation. The spear light swept out, and seventh uncle struggled to resist Chu Xiu's demonic saber light. Seventh uncle didn't lie. He did no other things besides the bow, and his spear skills were proof. Unfortunately, compared to his amazing 13 soul-stealing arrows, his spear skills were too mediocre. It was so mediocre that one couldn't bear to look at it. Without the 13 soul-stealing arrows, it was difficult for seventh uncle to exert even 90% of his strength. Under Chu Xiu's Avicii Path's 3 blades, he was forced to retreat step by step. As Chu Xiu's saber fell, the 3-layered Avicii demon blade condensed into one. With a loud bang, seventh uncle was directly hit, and he was sent flying while vomiting blood. Seeing Chu Xiu's figure once again holding a saber, seventh uncle couldn't help but secretly curse him as a monster. His previous arrows had already seriously injured Chu Xiu, and his internal organs were already injured. Yet he was still able to erupt with such a level of power. If this wasn't a monster, what was? In fact, seventh uncle had underestimated Chu Xiu. With the glazed golden thread goo and the internal lion seal suppressing his injuries, Chu Xiu's internal organs were indeed injured. But his injuries weren't as serious as seventh uncle had imagined. He still had the strength to fight. On the other hand, seventh uncle's 13 soul-snatching arrows had consumed a lot of his gang energy and inner force. Coupled with his mediocre spear technique, he was completely suppressed when he fought with Chu Xiu. He had already been bombarded to the point of vomiting blood. Seeing that he could no longer resist, seventh uncle estimated that Xiahou Wujiang would be able to escape from heaven-reaching tower. When Chu Xiu's body shone with demonic aura and slashed again, the short spear in his hand suddenly changed. It split into 2, revealing the bowstring in the middle. It directly cut through the stellar energy and enveloped the heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand. The 2 parts of the spear body began to disintegrate, turning into countless hidden weapons that covered the sky and earth, rushing towards Chu Xiu. Although heaven's sun gazing at air did not consume internal strength, it consumed an abnormally large amount of mental strength. Thus, Chu Xiu could not maintain the state of heaven's sun gazing at air all the time. Thus, seventh uncle's move was something that Chu Xiu did not expect. Similarly, this was seventh uncle's trump card. It could not be considered a transformation, and could only be said to be a last-ditch effort to abandon his weapon. With the bowstring wrapped around the heavenly demon dance, and the hidden weapons that came swarming towards him, Chu Xiu had no choice but to temporarily abandon his saber, and use the Duga seal to defend himself. By the time he blocked all these hidden weapons, seventh uncle had already burst out with his fastest speed, and escaped out of the arsenal. Chu Xiu took a step forward, and arrived first despite moving later. His speed was almost extremely fast, and he blasted out the annihilating heaven and earth obliterating oblivion killing fist. When the fist force landed, the killing intent had already blasted into seventh uncle's back, causing him to immediately spit out a mouthful of blood mixed with fragments of his internal organs. In the blink of an eye, his fist turned into a palm, and the annihilating heaven and earth obliterating great purple sun palm fell. Immediately, the evil purple sun demonic flame entered his body, causing seventh uncle to spit out another mouthful of blood that was stained with purplish-black demonic aura. However, seventh uncle's desire to live was really strong to the extreme. After being hit by Chuxio's fist and palm, he forcibly received the entire force. Using this force, his figure directly leaped out of the arsenal and disappeared into the fog. Chapter 364. Seventh uncle escaped from the arsenal. Chuxio did not chase after him because there was no need to do so. If there were no accidents, seventh uncle should not be able to survive. The explosive power of the great violet yang hand of extinguishing skies and extinguishing earth might not be enough, but the power of the purple yang demonic flame that followed was like a maggot in one's bones, and it was impossible to ignore. If seventh uncle was at his peak, he naturally would not be afraid of the purple yang demonic flame. However, Chuxio had severely injured him, and then used the oblivion-killing fist to shatter his opponent's internal organs. At this moment, seventh uncle was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The purple yang demonic flame was definitely a fatal existence for seventh uncle in this state. Unless he could meet a unity of heaven and man expert who was willing to help him expel the purple yang demonic flame, seventh uncle would definitely die. Of course, Chuxio did not go to a safe place to catch up with seventh uncle, because he had exhausted himself a little. After all, seventh uncle's strength was obvious. This time, if Chuxio had not comprehended the heaven's sun gazing at air at the last moment, he would have been in danger. Although Chuxio won in the end, he had also exhausted a lot of his strength. It was better not to chase a cornered enemy, and it was more important to take care of the benefits in front of him. At this moment, Teachertson was dumbfounded as he looked at Chuxio. He did not expect that Chuxio would actually win. Seventh uncle, whose strength definitely far exceeded his own, was actually beaten by Chuxio to the point of vomiting blood, and escaping with serious injuries. No matter how he looked at it, it was a little unbelievable. Chuxio flashed a sinister smile at Teachertson. Eldertson, I've already said before that standing on Xiahou Wujiang's side was a wrong decision. You will regret it. Now that you've seen the results, I'm right. Your choice was wrong. Chuxio waved his hand and his stellar energy erupted. The heavenly demon dance, which had been entangled by the bowstring, was sucked back into Chuxio's hand. Demonic energy soared into the sky. Without a word, he slashed at Teachertson. Teachertson, who was currently fighting with Lu Fengxian, also did not say anything. The sword in his hand glowed with purple and green lightning. However, he did not fight Chuxio head-on. Instead, he repelled Lu Fengxian's halberd, called out to his disciple and turned to flee. Teachertson was indeed a wily old fox. His ability to steer the ship according to the wind was very strong. The moment he saw that the situation was not good, he immediately fled. He was very decisive. Just Lu Fengxian alone was enough to make him unable to defeat her. She was very difficult to deal with. Now there was also Chuxio, whose strength even made him feel frightened. There was no way he could fight them. If he did not escape, he would be courting death. Moreover, Teachertson was indeed very regretful. He regretted not choosing to stand on Chuxio's side. If he had stood on Chuxio's side, although he would not be able to monopolize the treasures in the Skysplit Tower, he would at least be able to get a third of it. Unlike now, he did not obtain any benefits and could only leave with his tail between his legs. However, no matter who it was, 99% of the people would choose to ally with the Xiahou clan. After all, standing on the Xiahou clan's side would give them the highest chance of winning. However, who would have thought that Chuxio's strength would be so abnormal? He could even turn the tables in such a hopeless situation. Seeing Teachertson's fleeing figure, Lu Fengxian walked over and asked Chuxio, "Should we give chase?" Just now, when Lu Fengxian fought with Teachertson, she felt very stifled. She had never seen such a cunning opponent. In a real battle, both sides would use all their trump cards. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious between Lu Fengxian and Teacher Xiyan. However, Teachertson deliberately did not confront Lu Fengxian head-on. He was clearly a realm stronger than Lu Fengxian, But he deliberately delayed. He did not want Lu Fengxian to rescue Chu Xiu. Moreover, he did not want to get injured and fight for his life. It was truly disgusting. Chu Xiu waved his hand and transmitted his voice. There is no need to give chase. My internal organs are injured. I was just trying to scare him. If he did not leave, we could find an opportunity to kill him. However, he has escaped. It is impossible to catch up to him even if we wanted to. Lu Fengxian nodded and followed Chu Xiu towards the green tongue tree in the center. The warriors who were still fighting along the way made way for them. Even the people of the Yu Maiden Palace were the same. Winner takes all. Now that the people of the Xiahou clan had escaped with heavy injuries, and the people of the Ba Mountain Sword sect had also escaped, Chu Xiu's side was undoubtedly the strongest. While there were a few warriors at the unity of heaven and man, and 5 energies returning to the origin among the wandering warriors, their strength could not compare to 7th uncle. The gap between people of the same realm was very large. At least, if it was someone like Yin Luohua, he would not even have the confidence to block 3 arrows from 7th uncle. Just at this moment, the entire sky-split tower felt like it was shaking. Chu Xiu's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly said, "Hurry up and snatch the secret boxes in the armory. Just pick the ones at the top. Take as many as you can." The vibrations from the Tower of Tong Tian meant that the Tower of Tong Tian was about to sink back into the ground. If they did not leave now, they would not be able to leave in the future. The secret box at the top of the green tree was in Chu Xiu's hand. This time, Chu Xiu had put in the most effort in the Tower of Tong Tian. Lu Fengxian and the others silently agreed that it was normal for Chu Xiu to take the most. The others did not dare to fight with Chu Xiu. So after Chu Xiu took the secret box at the top and a dozen other boxes at the front, he immediately called for everyone to turn and leave. Lu Fengxian and the others had taken most of the boxes and did not linger. Chu Xiu and the others did not touch the boxes in the middle and lower parts, giving the wandering warriors a chance. As the Tower of Tong Tian shook more and more, these people showed no signs of leaving. Chu Xiu did not have the good intention to remind these people. Moreover, even if Chu Xiu did, it would be useless. In front of benefits, there were only a few who could control their greed. Chu Xiu was sure that if he were to remind them, they would definitely think that he wanted to monopolize these things, and that was why he was threatening them. After Chu Xiu and the others left the Tower of Tong Tian, the entire Tower of Tong Tian began to shake and sink. A portion of the warriors who escaped with Chu Xiu had a look of lingering fear. If they hadn't left just now, they would have been the ones buried under the ground. The Tower of Tong Tian had completely sunk into the ground. The people of the Yu Palace immediately left after obtaining some benefits. The others did the same. Chu Xiu looked at Lu Fengxian and the others and asked, "Brother Lu, do you have anything to do next?" Mo Tianlin said, "I didn't have anything to do before. Brother Xie and Brother Lu came to find me, so we wanted to come to the pass and meet up with Brother Chu. But now that Brother Chu is injured, I have to bring the things and information I obtained from the Tower of Tong Tian back to the Mo family, so I won't disturb Brother Chu any longer." Xie Xiaolu and Lu Fengxian nodded. Although Chu Xiu looked fine, everyone knew that Chu Xiu's current situation was not good. This was not the time to chat. Lu Fengxian also said, "I've been in West Chu for a while. I'm going back to my Northern Yen home to take a look." In the past, Lu Fengxian was forced out of Northern Yen because he and Chu Xiu stole Nie Donglio's opportunity, and were forced out of Northern Yen by the Morgue village. Now that Lu Fengxian's strength had greatly increased, he had the 5 Qis returning to the origin realm, and his battle strength was comparable to experts at the Unity of the World realm. If he returned to Northern Yen now, he would not need to fear the Morgue village. Unless a martial arts grandmaster like Nie Renlong personally took action, Lu Fengxian was confident he could escape. Moreover, Nie Renlong did not have nothing better to do. He was a dignified martial arts grandmaster, the head of the Morgue village. He had countless things to do. He was bored, so he came to find trouble with Lu Fengxian because of some trivial matters between the younger generation. After they chatted for a while, Chu Xiu took his things and said goodbye to them. At the same time, on a small road near Eastern Qi, Xiahou Wujiang was waiting for his 7th uncle. Being forced out of Tongtian Tower, Xiahou Wujiang was so angry that he almost crushed his teeth. Xiahou Wujiang did not hate himself for not obtaining the treasures in Tongtian Tower, but he hated himself for being defeated again, defeated by Chu Xiu. It seemed that from the time he met Chu Xiu he had never taken advantage of Chu Xiu. However, Xiahou Wujiang did not think too much about it. He was not a weak-minded trash like Lin Kaiyun of Sword King City, who could not recover after being defeated by Chu Xiu. He was the future heir of the Xiahou clan. After being taught a lesson by Xiahou Zhen, Xiahou Wujiang also knew that he would not be facing some internal competitors of the Xiahou clan, nor would he be facing young martial artists like Chu Xiu or Mo Tianlin, but the heroes of the entire Jianghu. Only by taking a long-term view could he go further. He had suffered several losses in the hands of Chu Xiu, but he did not believe that he would suffer a loss in the hands of Chu Xiu in this life. However, at this time, Xiahou Wujiang was still puzzled. It had been so long, why hadn't his seventh uncle arrived? Xiahou Wujiang had never thought that something would happen to his seventh uncle. As Xiahou Zhen's confidant, his seventh uncle was carefully selected by Xiahou Zhen. His strength was absolutely outstanding among his peers. Even if his 13 soul-stealing arrows had been used up, nothing should have happened to him. However, at this time, a figure staggered over, vomiting blood as he walked. Xiahou Wujiang fixed his eyes on the figure, and saw that it was his seventh uncle, but at this time, his appearance was extremely miserable. His seventh uncle's face no longer had the slightest trace of blood, and he was as pale as a piece of paper. In his meridians, there were wisps of purplish-black aura running back and forth, looking extremely evil. Seventh uncle. Xiahou Wujiang immediately took out an elixir, and wanted to stuff it into his seventh uncle's mouth, but he was stopped by a wave of his hand. Seventh uncle smiled bitterly and pointed to his back. The clothes there had been shattered, and there was a purplish-black palm print on his back that had sunk deep into his skin and flesh. It was abnormally terrifying. Seventh uncle struggled and said, "Young master, don't waste your strength. It's useless. Chu Xiu's palm force is insidious and powerful. Unless there is another martial artist who is also at the unity of heaven and man realm, no one can save me. I'm afraid I can't make it this time. Young master, please listen to me. If there is no clan head's full support, don't touch Chu Xiu for the time being. Only when you are 100% sure that you can completely kill Chu Xiu, can you make a move." After saying that, seventh uncle seemed to have overexerted himself. The purple sun devil flame in his body suddenly flourished and completely swallowed his heart meridians, causing him to vomit a mouthful of purplish-black blood. He was completely lifeless. Seventh uncle. Chapter 365. Looking at seventh uncle's corpse, Xiahou Wujiang's eyes flickered with boundless hatred and sorrow. When Chu Xiu killed Xiahou Wujiang only had hatred and anger. In fact, the hatred was not the most, anger was the majority. He was angry that Chu Xiu had killed his woman, not that Chu Xiu had killed his woman, because Xiahou Wujiang had many women, and Chen was not the only one. Chen death could make him angry, but it would not make him sad. But now, seventh uncle's death made Xiahou Wujiang's hatred rise to the sky. At the same time, he was also very sad because seventh uncle watched him grow up. Although Xiahou Wujiang showed his talent when he was young, Xiahou Zhen was extremely strict with Xiahou Wujiang. He let seventh uncle and others supervise his cultivation, and punish him if he made a mistake. At this time, seventh uncle, as Xiahou Zhen's confidant, did not do everything according to Xiahou Zhen's instructions. Instead, when Xiahou Wujiang was too tired, he would go easy on him, and when Xiahou Wujiang was punished, he would also help him plead for mercy. Therefore, for Xiahou Wujiang, seventh uncle was no different from his real family. He was even much better than those uncles of the Xiahou clan who schemed against him the moment they met and dug holes for him. But now, seventh uncle was dead, and he died in the hands of Chu Xiu. How could Xiahou Wujiang not hate him? But no matter how much he hated him, Xiahou Wujiang was not stupid enough to go back to Chu Xiu to take revenge at this time. Seventh uncle was dead. He was not finished, and the Xiahou clan was not finished either. At this time, Chu Xiu naturally did not care about seventh uncle's life or death. After getting the things in the Tower of Babel, Chu Xiu immediately returned to the Guanxi land to count the spoils. In the original plot, the most precious thing in Tongtian Tower should be the body refining skill, which was considered a good skill in the whole world. Now that the secret box was in Chu Xiu's hands, if Chu Xiu's guess was right, it should be this thing. The box looked simple and was made of ordinary black iron. If it wasn't for the fact that it was placed on the highest floor of the armory, Chu Xiu wouldn't have believed that it was the most precious book in the armory. When he opened the secret box, there wasn't just one cultivation technique inside. Instead, there was an entire set. The top cultivation technique had 5 words written in gold. Vajra Superpower. In the Jianghu, when it came to Taoist, Buddhist, and demonic sects, the most common were the 3 sections. It was just that the demonic Tao was on the decline. On the other hand, Buddhism was revered in the north and the south. The North Buddhist sect, the Great Light Temple, cultivated the physique, while the South Buddhist sect, the Sabodhi Monastery, cultivated the Dharma. These 2 sects practically encompassed 90% of the Buddhist martial arts in the entire pugilistic world. In particular, the Great Light Temple. Almost all the Buddhist body refining skills in the world originated from the Great Light Temple. This was the case both in ancient times and now. Of course, this was not absolute. This was the case with the Vajra Superpower. It was created by an eminent Buddhist monk who didn't belong to the Great Light Temple. However, when it was cultivated to the peak, its power was not inferior to the Great Light Temple's body refining skills. The main purpose of the Vajra Superpower was simple and direct. It was to cultivate the power of the physical body and evolve the power of Guardian Vajra. However, if this was all, then the Vajra Superpower could only be regarded as a low-class or mid-class body refining skill. It would definitely not be ranked in the Jianghu. It would not be collected by the sky-reaching martial sect and regarded as the most precious cultivation technique book. The entry level of the Vajra Superpower was slightly mediocre. What could really unleash the power of the Vajra Superpower was the subsequent changes. Legend had it that the Vajra Superpower was formed by the 32 Vajra Dharma of Buddhism. Those who cultivated it could obtain the power of Vajra Superpower. When cultivated to great success, they could comprehend and condense their own Dharma. In fact, when they reached the peak, they would not be constrained by the power of the Dharma. Their appearance would be completely removed, and only their spirit would remain. They would reach the realm where their spirit would move and their power would be generated. Simply put, whether the Vajra Superpower was powerful or not depended on the cultivator. In fact, the Dharma that every cultivator could cultivate was different. Naturally, the power would be different as well. The Vajra Superpower book was so thick. In fact, only a portion of the main cultivation techniques took up. The rest were the insights left behind by other cultivators, as well as the Dharma that they left behind. Among them were the Vajra Superpower Dharma, the Blissful Boy Dharma, the Foolish and Clumsy Dharma, the All Dharma Silence Dharma, the All Rivers Flow into the Sea, and the Unique and Righteous Dharma. These Dharma were left behind by the seniors who had cultivated the Vajra Superpower in the past. They were the Dharma that belonged to them. Chu Xiu could cultivate them. These Dharma could help Chu Xiu get started as soon as possible. However, these Dharma were not Chu Xiu's own insights. Even if Chu Xiu used them, he would not be able to cultivate them to the peak. If he really wanted to understand the true meaning of the Vajra Superpower, he would have to comprehend his own Dharma. In the future, if Chu Xiu could combine all the Dharma into one and reach the realm of no form and soul, a single thought would be able to create all kinds of techniques. This was the ultimate state of the Vajra Superpower, also known as the Infinite Tribulation Golden Body. These were all introductions in the book. No one knew if anyone had cultivated to this realm. Moreover, this cultivation technique rarely appeared in the original plot, so it did not have a grade, and there was no way to give it a fixed grade. The reason was very simple. Although the pugilistic world had long concluded that there was no strongest cultivation technique, only the strongest people, a cultivation technique, should have an upper and lower limit. However, martial arts like the Vajra Superpower had no upper and lower limit. Anyone could cultivate it. As for what kind of power one could achieve after cultivating it, it could only be said that the difference was like heaven and earth, so it was not easy to set a grade. When he opened the other secret boxes, there were more cultivation techniques in them. There were from the Taoist, Buddhist, and demonic sections. There were also some very strange cultivation techniques. However, Chu Xiu took a look and found that almost all of them were of no use to him. Now, Chu Xiu's cultivation technique inheritance was not inferior to those of the disciples of the big sections. In fact, it was even stronger than them. Therefore, those 4th and 5th revolution cultivation techniques that other people in the pugilistic world regarded as treasures, Chu Xiu was not interested in them. As for the other things, Chu Xiu only took a few of the more precious elixirs. He did not touch the rest of the things. He was preparing to hand them over to the Guanzhong torture room. Of course, Chu Xiu did this not because he was selfless, but because these things could prove Chu Xiu's value. Although the Guanzhong torture room was a very special existence, its nature was not much different from most of the martial forces. The sect would provide protection for you, and you would also have to provide enough value for the sect. The two sides complemented each other. All along, Chu Xiu had already provided a lot of reputation for the Guanzhong torture room. Now these things from the Tower of Babel were the benefits that Chu Xiu could provide for the Guanzhong torture room. Therefore, when something happened to Chu Xiu, it was the Guanzhong torture room's turn to protect him. This was also the reason why Chu Xiu dared to kill Ming Chen. Of course, if the Guanzhong torture room was afraid of trouble, they could choose not to protect him. But then, what would happen to the people's hearts? A force that couldn't even protect its own people was bound to be divided, and would probably be on the verge of decline. As expected, Chu Xiu did not have to wait for long. Guan Xiyu had already sent Yuqi over and asked Chu Xiu to make a trip to the Guanzhong torture room headquarters. When he saw Chu Xiu again, Yuqi took the initiative to salute Chu Xiu and said, "Official Chu, you've caused quite a commotion this time." Yuqi was a person who knew his limits. In the past, Chu Xiu's rank was similar to his, so Yuqi could treat Chu Xiu as an equal. But now Chu Xiu was already a torture officer. Although this position did not make Yuqi be polite or respectful to Chu Xiu, it was necessary to at least respect him. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Brother Yuqi, we've known each other for such a long time. If you're being so polite, you're treating me like an outsider. Let's just address each other like before." As for the Skirich Tower incident this time, the pugilistic world has always looked at the person with the bigger fist and the most things. Do you think I should take the initiative to share the things with others? Hearing that, Yuqi laughed bitterly and said, "Although that makes sense, Brother Chu, you killed the people from the Temple of Great Light in front of everyone this time. You were a little too ruthless. I'm afraid this matter won't be resolved so easily. Anyway, the Hall Master sent you to the headquarters to discuss how to resolve this matter. Brother Chu, you'd better be mentally prepared." Yuqi did not have any ill feelings towards Chu Xiu because Chu Xiu knew his limits. Previously, Yuqi had addressed Chu Xiu as Lord, but that was because he understood the rules. If Chu Xiu were to forcefully accept it, although there was no problem, it would inevitably make people feel that he was inflating his ego, and it would be somewhat uncomfortable. Therefore, Yuqi asked Chu Xiu to be mentally prepared and think about how to deceive this matter on the way. Chu Xiu was not worried at all. Instead, he chuckled and cupped his hands. "Thank you for your advice, Brother Yuqi." With that, Chu Xiu followed Yuqi and headed for the headquarters of the torture chamber. When they arrived at the Guanzhong torture room, it was already night. Chu Xiu was in no hurry to see Guan Xiyu. Instead, he asked Yuqi to find a guest room in the headquarters for him to stay in. After all, he was now a torture officer, so he still had this treatment. After nightfall, Chu Xiu sat in the room and drank tea. The room was shrouded in a black demonic mist, but there was also a fragrant wind. Mei Qinglian's figure appeared within. Chu Xiu was surprised. "Madam, you dare to make a move in the torture chamber's headquarters? Aren't you afraid of Guan Xiyu noticing?" Mei Qinglian walked to the chair beside Chu Xiu and sat down. She said lazily, "Him? As long as I don't want him to notice, he won't be able to. Also, don't call me madam. Since you know my identity, do you really think I'll stay beside that old thing for the rest of my life?" Chu Xiu smiled. Then what should I call you? Sect Master Mei? Mei Qinglian waved her hand. Forget it. None of the Demon Sect's sect masters had a good ending. Moreover, I've never inherited the position of the Demon Sect's sect master. When there were still a few people in the Demon Sect, I was the Demon Sect's saintess. Moreover, I'm also your elder. If you want to call me, just call me saintess. Also, you're quite bold this time. You killed the martial monk instructor of the Great Light Temple's Vajra department, just like that. After Guan Xiyu heard about it, he was so angry that he smashed his cup. Chapter 366. Chu Xiu was not surprised that Guan Xiyu smashed her cup in anger. On the contrary, it would be strange if Guan Xiyu did not react at all. Chu Xiu just smiled at Mei Qinglian and said, "Someone wants to kill me, so I naturally have to kill him. Who cares if he is from the Great Light Temple or the Sabodhi Monastery? I let him go once, but do you think I can turn an enemy into a friend? Since it is impossible to reconcile, I can only put him to death." When Mei Qinglian heard this, she also clapped her hands and said with a smile, "Guan Xiyu blames you, but I won't. The Great Light Temple really should be dealt with. In the past, when the Kunlun devil cult was destroyed, the Great Light Temple was one of the sects that contributed the most. However, this is something that happened hundreds and thousands of years ago, so I don't want to say anything more. Later on, my Dark Demon sect was very low-key, but we were still chased by those damn bald donkeys all over Jianghu. They are not human at all." When mentioning the Great Light Temple, it was clear that Mei Qinglian also hated them so much that the roots of her teeth itched, even though those were things of the past. With a wave of her hand, Mei Qinglian said to Chu Xiu, "You have caused a lot of trouble this time, but Guan Xiyu should not punish you severely. I will also add fuel to the fire from the side, and let Guan Xiyu help you this time." Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, saintess." Mei Qinglian waved her hand and said, "Don't be in a hurry to thank me. After this is over, I still have something that I need your help with." Chu Xiu asked, "What is it?" Mei Qinglian rolled her eyes at Chu Xiu and said, "Don't worry. With your strength, do you think I will trick you? This is something that is within your ability, and it is also good for you. After this is over, I will tell you. I will not let you suffer." After keeping Chu Xiu in suspense for a while, Mei Qinglian stood up and left under the cover of the black fog and devil qi. The next morning, Chu Xiu arrived at Guan Xiyu's study. Mei Qinglian was sitting beside Guan Xiyu. Guan Xiyu's expression was extremely gloomy when he saw Chu Xiu arrive. He snorted coldly and said, "Chu Xiu, what did I tell you last time? What did you do in the end? You killed people from the Great Guangming Temple just like that. But have you ever considered that the Guanzhong torture room would become enemies with the Great Guangming Temple because of this?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Hall Master, it's not that I want to kill the people from the Temple of Great Light. It's the people from the Temple of Great Light who want to kill me. Everything in the pugilistic world had to be reasonable. Even if the other party was the Northern Buddhist sect and the Great Light Temple, could they be unreasonable? That Ming Chen came to find me for revenge and wanted my life. Could it be that I had to endure it? However, I will take responsibility for this matter alone. I was the one who killed them, and it has nothing to do with the Guanzhong torture room. This is also a personal grudge that was formed before I joined the Guanzhong torture room. I am willing to leave the Guanzhong torture room and bear the consequences of this matter alone." As he said that, Chu Xiu took out the techniques he obtained from the sky-reaching tower and said in a deep voice, "The place where the sky-reaching tower appeared is now the Guanzhong torture room's territory. I obtained these from the sky-reaching tower, so I should hand them over to the Guanzhong torture room. However, from now on, I can no longer work for the Guanzhong torture room." Mei Qinglian looked at Chu Xiu with a hint of mockery in her eyes. Even she could see through this act of retreating in order to advance, let alone Guan Xiyu. However, in the current situation, Chu Xiu's move was still useful. At least Guan Xiyu would not do something that would cause dissension in the Guanzhong torture room. Mei Qinglian said, "Master, this time, the monks from the Temple of Great Light were too overbearing. If Chu Xiu had backed down and escaped, Not only would the Guanzhong torture room not be able to get the items in the sky-reaching tower, our reputation would also be tarnished. Ming Chen was just a martial monk instructor under the Vajrayard. He was not a famous person in the Jianghu. Would killing him provoke the abbot of the Temple of Great Light? Hearing Mei Qinglian's words, Guan Xiyu's expression became a little better. However, he still snorted and said, "All right, stop acting. The Guanzhong torture room will help you handle this matter. However, you must carefully consider the consequences before taking action next time. Otherwise, if one day you cause so much trouble that the Guanzhong torture room can't handle it, you'll have to pray for your own good." Chu Xiu smiled and stood up. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Thank you, Hall Master." Guan Xiu told Chu Xiu to be careful. In fact, when Chu Xiu killed Ming Chen, he had already considered it carefully. Chu Xiu knew that the Guanzhong torture room had the ability to handle this matter. The person Chu Xiu had killed was not a young talent from the Temple of Great Light, nor was he an important person. The Temple of Great Light would not come to the Guanzhong torture room with great fanfare to ask for Ming Chen. Moreover, if Guan Xiu was really afraid at this time and did not want to offend the Temple of Great Light for Chu Xiu, then it was very simple. Chu Xiu could just leave. Anyway, for Chu Xiu, the Guanzhong torture room was just a springboard for himself. Chu Xiu did not have any nostalgia for the Guanzhong torture room. Guan Xiu found Yuqi, took out a string of prayer beads, and handed it to Yuqi. She said, "Get someone to send this string of prayer beads to the Temple of Great Light. Tell the people of the Temple of Great Light that Chu Xiu and Ming Chen had a grudge before he joined the Guanzhong torture room. The grudge of the martial world is settled in the martial world. A person's death is like an extinguished lamp. I hope that the Temple of Great Light can look at this matter rationally this time." Yuqi held the string of prayer beads and asked in confusion, "This is?" Guan Xiu said in a deep voice, "The Temple of Great Light has 3 major meditation halls and 6 major martial schools. Among them, the status of the 3 major meditation halls is higher than that of the 6 major martial schools. In the past, the previous hall master, Lord Chu Kuanga, owed a debt to the seat of honor of the Daredevil Meditation Hall, the head of the Daredevil Meditation Hall, Dragon Tree of 9 Wonders, Su Yun. Therefore, Su Yun left this string of prayer beads as a favor. The favor of the seat of honor of the Daredevil Meditation Hall is enough to offset this matter. Even if the seat of honor of the Vajra institution, Skunda the Venerable Su Yen came, his words would not be able to defeat Su Yun. Chu Xiu felt a little surprised at this moment. Originally, he thought that if the Vajra institution came to ask for him, Guan Xiu would resist the seat of honor of the Vajra institution, Su Yen. He did not expect Guan Xiu to use such a method to solve the matter. However, when he thought about it, it was reasonable. In the past, Chu Kuanga was known as a great hero. He had saved countless people, and there were countless people in the martial world who owed Chu Kuanga favors. It was not strange that there were people from the Temple of Great Light among them. However, a favor was just a favor. It was not big enough for people to sacrifice their lives for it. Therefore, before Chu Kuanga died, during the most critical moment of the Guanzhong torture room, the Guanzhong torture room did not use Su Yun's favor. This was because Guan Xiu knew that this favor was not enough for Su Yun to help the Guanzhong torture room overcome its crisis. It could only be used for such a small matter. After warning Chu Xiu again, Guan Xiu let Chu Xiu leave. Taking out Su Yun's favor, Guan Xiu did not feel the pinch. This favor belonged to Su Yun, and not the entire Temple of Great Light. Therefore, if it was not used, it would be completely useless after Su Yun died. With the help of the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu naturally returned to Guanxi with peace of mind. He was prepared to begin closed-door training to recuperate and cultivate his great Vajra divine power. At this time in the Xiahou clan, Xiahou Wujiang had his head lowered. Beside him was the corpse of his 7th uncle, and in front of him stood Xiahou Zhen, who had a gloomy expression. After a long while, Xiahou Zhen said, "Who killed my 7th uncle?" Xiahou Wujiang said in a low voice, "It was Chu Xiu, but Father Chu Xiu." "Shut up." Before Xiahou Wujiang could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Xiahou Zhen. Xiahou Zhen said coldly, "I taught you to only look at the results, not the process. I don't care about what happened to Chu Xiao. Didn't I tell you last time that you should be cautious and decisive? Don't make a move if you don't have the confidence to win. What did you do? You still lost. And you even made my seventh uncle pay with his life for this matter. One failure can be accepted, and two can also be forgiven, but you lost to Chu Xiao again and again. This can only prove that there are problems with your ability and mentality. Do you know that if you weren't the most talented among my children, I would have crippled you right now? Xiahou Wujiang lowered his head and didn't dare to speak, because Xiahou Zhen didn't even give him a chance to explain. Xiahou Wujiang was indeed defeated somewhat miserably this time, and even lost his seventh uncle's life. Xiahou Zhen was really angry this time. His seventh uncle was his most trusted right-hand man. He was absolutely worthy of his trust, and he was the kind of confidant who would die for him at any time. Xiahou Zhen didn't have many people like this around him. Xiahou Zhen trusted them even more than his own clansmen. But now his seventh uncle died because of Xiahou Wujiang. This made Xiahou Zhen feel pity and heartache at the same time. Humans weren't plants or trees. How could they be emotionless? His seventh uncle had been by his side for more than 20 years, but now he had died a violent death. Xiahou Zhen couldn't remain indifferent. Looking coldly at Xiahou Wujiang, Xiahou Zhen said coldly, "You go to the ancestral hall and reflect on yourself now. My seventh uncle won't die in vain. The Guanzhong torture room must also give my Xiahou clan an explanation for this matter." In the past, Xiahou Zhen's character could be said to be quite steady and calm, and he rarely lost his composure like he did now. If it wasn't seventh uncle who died this time, but Xiahou Wujiang's guards and the like, Xiahou Zhen would at most teach Xiahou Wujiang a lesson and let him grow up through setbacks, and that would be it. It was fine for the older generation like Xiahou Zhen to deal with the grudges between the younger generation, but it would be somewhat embarrassing and against the rules. But this time his seventh uncle was killed by Chu Xiao, which made Xiahou Zhen unable to remain indifferent. Otherwise, how would the other confidants like his seventh uncle view him? Just as Xiahou Zhen was about to mobilize the people of the Xiahou clan to give the Guanzhong torture room some pressure, a disciple of the Xiahou clan suddenly walked in and said, "Patriarch, the elders have invited you to a meeting." Xiahou Zhen thought of something, and his face suddenly darkened as he cursed in a low voice. "It's those old farts again." You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.